Good afternoon, everyone. I would like for you to continue eating your lunch. I will not be offended if I hear rattling paper or drinking, all that. That's what I expect you to do. I am your luncheon speaker. You guys are going to see me a whole lot today. You're not going to want to see Bob Wallace once again. No, but I'm glad to be a part of this and be a part of this, this program. I want to talk to you now about my fourth book, which was on alliances and partnerships. I had already talked to you about that in the previous section in terms of my research at Dartmouth at the business school. And this was the fourth book that I wrote because as I researched through the issues pertaining to women and minority entrepreneurs, as topics came up that I thought were impediments to growth, those were the areas I tended to focus on. And so you can probably imagine that this issue of alliances and partnerships was one of the issues, because there were too many businesses who felt they could do it by themselves and do it alone, and they were failing. And so this idea of alliances and partnerships became very important, I felt, to doing some more research on that and providing insight that may be helpful to businesses across the world, for that matter. So Einstein said it best. He said the only source of knowledge is experience. That's why we're here today. It's the experience. You heard from the panelists and their experiences. If you're wise, you will listen very carefully to the experiences, because you learn from John and Calvin and Tony, so you don't make those same kind of mistakes. And I think Mr. Einstein, one of my mentors, not mentors, one of my heroes, just say, one of my heroes, could have been a mentor, though. I'm old enough to have been a mentor of Einstein, but certainly one of my heroes, right, of Einstein. I want to talk to you, I want to give you a backdrop around this issue of alliances and partnerships. Because I think if you look at life in general, across the board, people who have mastered the art of creating alliances and partnerships, they tend to be successful people. And in my world travels, I have seen this phenomenon play out, right, about the power of alliances and partnerships. And so I want to share with you a live, real case study. As some of you know, I've been blessed. I've been able to travel the world and do a lot of great things by God's grace. And we do a lot of mission work. So we're in countries in Africa and Latin America and Southeast Asia, but we spend a lot of time in Africa. We built an orphanage in Tanzania, East Africa, with Global Vessels that I'm chairman of the board of. And so I had the opportunity to spend time with the Maasai people, right? And the Maasai people are in Tanzania, but you'll find them in southern Kenya and in northern Tanzania. And you know them oftentimes by their red garments, right? And they wear red garments, quite frankly, to frighten the lions. So when animals see red, they tend to think danger, and they tend to go away. But while I was there in Tanzania, I saw and experienced something amazing. They told me that the Maasai people have the ability and the power to scare away lions and prides of lions. I said, come on, man, that can't be real. Come on, you must be kidding me. How are Maasai gonna deal with a pride of lions? They said, Bob, it's true. And when we were out on safari, I saw the Maasai get out the Jeep, right, and stare down lions. Now, I know y'all don't believe me, right? But maybe you'll believe this. Check this out. A little volume, sir. A little volume.
They're up against 15 hungry lions. But if they act as one, they might just intimidate the lions and push them off their kill. They make their move. Self-confidence is everything. This is the ultimate face-off. Suddenly, the lions back off. Rakita has just minutes before the lions realize it's a bluff. In a matter of seconds, he butchers the haunch of the wildebeest and they beat a hasty retreat.
So the lions say, what in the world just happened?
This is a scene which is
They have
played
no
out
idea what
throughout
happened
human
there. And so the idea that because of working together, the reason that the Maasai people are able to face off lions is because they work together, right? And they come across to the lions as this big monolithic group, right, that frightens the lions. You saw it for yourself. And I saw it in my travels in East Africa. And so the idea is that that's very critical to do that. Now, as you guys know, I've started a number of companies in technology and energy and media, and I will tell you that none of this work I've been able to do, I would not have been able to do if we had not had partners, alliances and partners to help us to make those transitions. You guys are aware of the books that I've written from Black Wealth. Black Wealth, you wrote Small Business Success. Soul Food, you heard about in the last session about the principles of business success. Success Principles, which talks about guidelines for building wealth through faith. Do you know there are guidelines in the Bible that will tell you and I how to build wealth? Are you guys aware of that? If you're not, read that book. It'll blow your mind, right? The Code of a Billion, how we build billion-dollar businesses, which I think Tony had alluded to. Crash, it talks about global entrepreneurship and how we do business globally, right? So there's a lot of opportunities here in terms of what we want to do in business. But the book I want to talk about today is Alliances and Partnerships, right? This is that book I told you about. Just a real quick backdrop on this book. So when I began to research to write this book, I said to myself, who are the best examples, or not maybe the best, but good examples of companies that have utilized alliances and partnerships to build their businesses? And those were the companies that I sought out, right? Who were they? Verizon, Toyota, Ford Motor Company, Procter & Gamble, Microsoft, the state of Maryland, Kodak, Freddie Mac, and other companies, small businesses included. I want to know, what does it take to build a successful business using alliances and partnerships? Because I felt that if they gave us their insight, that maybe that might be helpful to us who are smaller businesses to follow the same path, right? So that was kind of the group that I used in the research, right? Because what I talk about is in the beginning of the book is, why is partnering and alliances, why is it important? Why is it critical, right? And hopefully I can convince you that it is. Let me move a little back here. So you heard about my Tom Friedman, one of my friends and heroes. He talked about, he wrote the book The World's Flat, which talks about how the world's changing. That's one reason why we need to partner. So we're looking at business partners globally, right? My daughter is going to be going around the world and building her software business because she's looking to think globally because the world truly is flat, and she understands that. Here's an example of that reality. Now, these are kids from South Korea.
형제자매 여러분, 주님의 이름 앞에 다시 모인 헤리티지 유나이티드를 소개합니다.
주님을 기쁘게 하는 것
Now, these are South Korean kids singing what song? Kirk Franklin, right? The world truly is flat, right? And every time I travel around the world, I see examples of how the world is flat. And amazing the American culture and how the American culture is so dominant on the entire planet. Here's another case study test. What city is this? Take a guess. Tokyo? Someone said Tokyo, right? How about that? Let's try this again. What city is this? Take a guess. Dubai? How about San Diego? That's all right, it's okay. Okay, let's try it again. What city is this? Come on, think fast, we gotta move fast. Someone said Baltimore. No, not quite Baltimore. Not quite Baltimore, right? Dubai, okay? What city is this? Any ideas? What city is that? Someone said Detroit. Okay, that's close enough. Boston's close enough. There you go, Boston, okay. What about this city? Very good, Chris. He said it. Shanghai, China, right? What city is this? Quickly. There you go. So there you go, my man. He went to Temple. That's why he knew, right? That's right, Philadelphia. What's my point? My point is you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell whether you were in North America, Latin America, Asia, Africa, Europe. It does not matter. The world truly is flat. If you're going to compete in a world that is flat, you have to know how to partner and how to find alliances, or you will not be successful. I talked to you about wealth in the earlier session. I talked to you about this equation that's in my book, Black Wealth. And my point to you bringing it here is, how many of you have all the M, all the T, all the I to be successful in your businesses? None of us do. So if you're short in M, or you're short in the T, or you're short in the I, you got to find partners who are strong in those areas. And I can tell you in my own personal experience in business, I've used this model in order to build teams of companies to go after business. As John was talking about in terms of how he built his business, okay? And so we have that reality. So the idea now is, if you believe, if I've convinced you that alliances and partnerships are important to your business, if I've given you enough data to say why it's important, let's talk about the how. How do you do it, right? I'm a typical engineer. I don't want to just tell you what to do. I want to give you some guidance on how to do it, right? So when you leave here, you have some tools that you can use to help you be successful, all right? And this is what I came up with in this book on partnerships, which has been translated into Mandarin Chinese and into Russian. And we've used this workshop, what I'm sharing with you, we've done this workshop all over the world. Europe, Africa, Latin America, okay? If you follow this theory, it works. Now, in your handouts, I didn't give you all the copies because it would have been too much. But hopefully you can take good notes. I've given you the core, the skeleton that I think you can use to help be successful. But this is the 12-step model that I cover in the book on how do you do alliances and partnerships, right? Now, if you look at this at a high level, there are 5 phases I want you to pay attention to. There is the top phase here, which is the capturing phase. There's the green zone, which is called the create phase. The red zone is building phase. The blue is maintaining of alliances and partnerships. And then the orange, or 12, is transitioning. So at a high level, these are the 5 global phases of building alliances and partnerships. Now, as you will see from the model, within the global hierarchy, there are subtasks, right? So in green is 4 tasks, red is 2, blue is 5 or 6, and then orange is 1 step, which is transitioning. What I want to do now is step you through this 12-step model and hopefully make it fun, right? And one way I make it fun is I use music and history and current facts to make it relevant to what we are and what we do, and to have some fun doing it, okay? Is that okay with you guys? Now keep eating, don't stop eating them. It's okay, I don't mind you eating while I'm up here starving to death, but you guys can go ahead and eat and have a good time, all right? Okay, let's go through the model. Let us start with the capturing phase. As Tony Hill said to you, when you come to events like this, my friends, you have to be intentional about seeking out potential partners for your business. So whatever your dream vision is, you have to be intentional. So when you come to an event like this, you should have goals and guidelines as to what you want to accomplish. So when I go to conferences, I have a set of metrics. I want to meet this many people. I want to come away with this many hot leads. I mean, I'm down to the wire on what I want out of that time. Because this is a day and time that you will never get back. I will never get it back. So make the most of it by being intentional, okay? So I talk about the red, yellow, and green balls. I make the point there is that when you and I meet people in business, at conferences, whatever, right? You know, I have this tool that I teach. And that is, so you meet someone, and you may feel like, it's nothing there. And, you know, it doesn't seem to work as far as being a potential partner. That person goes into your red bucket, right? But then you meet folks who say, there could be something here, but maybe not now. Then that person will go into your yellow bucket. You follow me? But then there's the green, what I call the green people, right? People you meet, you're like, oh man, this feels good. My intuition says this is something that could really be favorable. That woman, that man goes into your green bucket, or that company, right? You want to be able to segment your interactions so that when you get back to your office, you got your green list, your yellow list, and your red list. But the key is to capture everyone. Why? Why do you think? Why do you think?
Times change.
Times change. Very good, my brother. Times change, things change, people change, the environment changes. So a red person could very easily become a green person given changes in the environment and conditions. Very good, Dennis. So there we have that reality. Now, if we go through the model here, let's take step one. Step one in the green zone, right? Building trust. Step number one in alliances and partnerships, building trust. How do you build trust? Well, here's the question. How many of you fly? Not on your own, but in an airplane. How do you know? How do you know that the pilot flying that plane is qualified to fly that plane? How do you know that the maintenance program for the engines has been properly followed? You don't know, do you? But you fly anyway. Why? Why? Tony? Absolutely, absolutely. And you believe through faith, past performance, as Tony said, and consistency. Airlines have shown that they can get you and I from point A to point B safely and consistently. They have shown they can do that, okay? Another case study for you. What is this? If you can't read, it is a map of the universe. Who do you think designed this map? Scientists, true. From where? NASA. NASA says that from one end of the universe, wherever that is, to the other, is 100 billion light years. So far, so good? So how far is a light year? It is how far light can travel in 1 year. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. If you do the math, a light year, linear-wise, is equivalent to 6 trillion miles. So far, so good? So NASA says that the universe, from one end to the other, is 100 billion times 6 trillion miles. How far is that? Have you ever been there? Do you believe it? Do you believe it? You probably do. Why? Because it's NASA. Because NASA says it. And they have shown consistently they can do what they say they can do, right? This is another example of how we build trust in those situations. Step number 2 in the model is very, very similar. Get your MOGO working. What is MOGO? You know that's what it is. Mission, objectives, goals, and opportunity. Partnering is critical in situations where you cannot achieve something by yourself. When my company went from IT into energy, we recognized that although we had the IT legacy, to be a serious player in energy, we need to have partners to achieve this mission, objectives, goals, and opportunity. Because we recognized we could not do it by ourselves. And so we reached out and we identified partners that we spent time with, building trust and moving to this phase. Here is another case study for you. Now, this is kind of old school, so I'm going to need my old school folks in here to help out the younger school. All right, Ken? So here we go. So who are these guys? You guys too young. That's close. He said the average white band. That's close. Doobie Brothers. Doobie Brothers. Okay, now, that's correct. Doobie Brothers. Now, that was a 1970s era song. So, I was traveling in Europe one time, and, normally I don't go to clubs, but I figured I was in Germany, so I figured I'd just kind of, see what the club life is like and, just kind of get a sense of it, right? So I walked in this club, and they were playing this song, the Doobie Brothers. Now, but it was a little different because these were millennials who were jamming to a Doobie Brothers 1970s song, right? R&B back in the day. I said, wow. But as I listened to the song, I understood why the millennials were grooving to an old 1970s song. Listen to what I heard at the club. Listen carefully. It's the same, it's the bass song, but listen to the deviation. Listen carefully. That's the basic song.
Down around the corner, half a mile from here, you see them moving run, and you watch them disappear without love.
Y'all hear that?
Where would you be now?
Hold on, one more. Hold on. Here it is. Here it comes. Almost. Here it comes. That's the difference. Wow! They were giving it to. So here we have millennials from Europe. And you know how young folks party now. They don't party the way we used to party. We used to have a man and woman, and we would be together. Now young folks, they party in circles. They have like gangs partying together, right? Different world, okay? But they were jamming to the Doobie Brothers. Why? Because someone had taken the base asset and they had added to it through innovation and made it a new product that was now applicable to a newer market, a newer generation. And therefore, the Doobie Brothers could extend the life of their product, which was an old 1970s song, by what? Partnering and alliances, okay? So step number 3 is maximizing your client pain IQ. That is, you gotta understand what is the problem that you're trying to solve that requires you to partner with somebody, right? So when we got into microgrids and batteries and all that, we need to understand what was the problem that the client was having and who could help us, who had the skills in microgrid and all that kind of thing that we could partner with in order to solve that problem with. So it becomes critical to know what the problem is of the client you're seeking to serve, okay? And so the idea is, how we do that is you do these steps in order to do step 3 well, right? Know the client's business environment, mastering the future, and then mastering the politics. I think Tony said that. Tony or John or Calvin, I'm not sure who said it. Mastering the politics of business. My friends, do not ignore what's happening around you in your business politically, because it will impact your business, guarantee it. Whether it's local government like City of Baltimore or Howard County, whether it's state or federal, whatever it is, the government decisions can impact and will impact your business, okay? So we need to really think about that from the standpoint of maximizing our opportunities. Step number 4, it's still in the green zone, right? Step 4 is to know thyself. You saw in my earlier session in the 4-quadrant model, I talked about knowing thyself. I keep coming back to that, knowing thyself. Why? When you partner, it is important to know what do you bring to the table. What is the value proposition that you bring to the table? That's why knowing thyself is so very important, particularly if you're looking to change your industry. See, when we got from IT into energy, we didn't want to just be another energy company. We wanted, our objective was to change the industry. Now, have we done that yet? No. Have we had an impact? I believe so. But the spirit, the state of mind is, let us change the industry. And that takes a different mindset. Another case study to make this point. Who is this guy? And you guys so young, you guys probably this is before your time. Who's this guy? Ken, old school? No? Okay. How's that? Angelo Dundee. Okay, let's keep going. Let me help you out. Who's this guy? Howard Cosell. Very good. Somebody got there, Howard Cosell. Who is this guy? Who was this guy? Muhammad Ali. What do they have in common? Tony? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They were instrumental in revolution, changing the heavyweight, in particular, the heavyweight boxing industry, right? Now, how did they do that? Well, let's start with Angelo Dundee. Dundee had this new young fighter called Cassius Clay, right? Who then became Muhammad Ali. But he recognized there was something different about this young man. He was the heavyweight boxer, true, but his style of boxing was different than any they had ever seen before. He was smart, he was quick, he was agile, totally different from the other heavyweight fighters. So he had to change his training program to match this new young fighter called Muhammad Ali. That was Dundee. Howard Cosell played a critical role in helping to change the boxing industry as well. Howard Cosell, people didn't know, was a very close friend to Muhammad Ali. Howard Cosell was the one that taught Muhammad Ali how to deal with the media. You see, the old heavyweight fighters, they were in an era where there wasn't much TV. It was all audible. It was radio, but not much TV. In Ali's era, now you have TV. Not only that, color TV. So now, and then Ali he's a media star. Everyone wants to interview him. All of a sudden, he has to learn, how do I deal with the media? How do I make more money in my fights? All the changing environments of the heavyweight industry. And so between Angelo Dundee, Howard Cosell, and Muhammad Ali, then we were able to see a change in the boxing industry. See, you and I, when we're in our businesses, we should have as an objective, let me change the industry. Not just be a regular player, not just jump in like everyone else. Let me see how I can come in differently, right? Through partnering if necessary to change the industry. And that's what Muhammad Ali was able to do. You don't believe me? Look at this footage here, him and Floyd Patterson. Ali in the white, Patterson in the dark shorts. You've never seen a heavyweight fighter move like that before, not before Ali, okay? And that was the change in the game and the change in the industry that Ali ushered in because he's Ali. He was Ali. Now, all that culminated in what year? 1970 what? You guys too young. 1974. What happened in 74? The Rumble in the Jungle, right? Where Ali defeated who? George Foreman, who up until that time had been what? Undefeated, invincible. They thought he could never be beaten. But in Africa, in 1974, don't forget, I was a student at UPenn when this was out, right? This is what happened. All that paid off. This is Ali in the white shorts. As Foreman in the red shorts. Now watch this.
To let the man punch himself out. 30 seconds left in round 8. Very even fight.
Watch very carefully.
Ali, a sneaky right hand.
Because you might miss it.
Another sneaky right hand. This time he works over the shoulder of Foreman. It's the combination.
1974, Ali applied the rope-a-dope strategy to George Foreman, who had never been beat before, to win the championship, I think, a third time or second time. Okay? Muhammad Ali, 1974. I'm talking about changing the game of what you do by using alliances and partners to help you do that, all right? Step number 5, know thy partner. Know thy partner. Just as you know thyself, you have to know your partner. I had talked to you earlier about the principle, and these are all the steps here I mentioned in the book about assessing your partner's lift. I call it lift. But the first L there is likability. Likability. My friends, how do you increase your likability? It's really simple. Your mom and dad taught you how to do it a long time ago. It's real simple. How do you do it? Smile. That's a good one then. Smile. That's true. What else? Treat people how you want to be treated. In other words, sir, Put their needs ahead of your needs. Isn't that something? Didn't mom and daddy teach you that? Put their needs ahead of your needs, and you will find you will make friends very quickly when you do that. Okay? Likability. And there are other steps there. I won't go into detail there, but likability is definitely one of the top ones I want to talk about in terms of doing your lift. So let's do a case study here. We're talking about knowing thy partner. Who are these guys? Thank you. Somebody got that one right? The Beatles, right? Okay, the Beatles. All right, they were known for that. Paul McCartney and the Beatles. All right. And who's this guy? Who's this guy? Michael Jackson. Very good class. You got that right. Michael Jackson. So why would Paul McCartney and Beatles partner with Michael Jackson? Tony? Absolutely. You bring two differences together, and by doing that, you create a whole new entity, a whole different entity, right? Did they need each other? Probably not. They were all successful in their own right, right? But they saw something a little greater, a little bigger, and they said, if we come together, we can do that. So here's my question to you. What's that? A mouse? I think a rat. Okay? So Michael Jackson, see, I was cool with Michael Jackson until he wrote a love song about a rat. After that, I couldn't get with him anymore, you know what I mean? I mean, damn, I love something about a rat. But anyway, I digress, okay? So what did these two guys, what did they do together? What was the product? Black and white? Okay. We went on to do very, very well on the charts, okay? The power of alliances and partnerships. Step number 6, we're in the red zone, next to the red zone, okay? 360-degree review. What this says is, when you're looking to partner, my friends, in today's environment with the internet, it is very easy to do your research and due diligence on potential partners. If you don't believe me, when you get home tonight, Google Robert Wallace, and you'll find all kinds of bad things about me out there on the internet, okay? No, it's not true, right? I hope not anyway, right? Doing your vetting and analysis on potential partners, my friends, it's so easy to do. You can do that. How do you do that? There are many ways to do it. You get and many sources that you might have. You got government sources. You got talk to competition, stakeholders, employees who work for the company, and managers there. They will give you insight as far as your potential partners are concerned. Before I make a commitment to partner in my company, I do a vetting just like this on either the company, Tony, or the person, because I want to know who I'm dealing with. How many you here are married? How many are married? A few hands. How many will admit that you're married? The hands are good, okay? Right? Would you marry someone that you haven't vetted? Don't ask that question, all right? But the idea is to vet, right? And then figure out who you're dealing with and why you're dealing with them. Okay, we're now in the blue zone, step number 7, which is what? Embracing the boulder, embracing the boulder. This is especially applicable to small businesses. Why? Because as I think John mentioned and Calvin and Tony in the previous session, a lot of times you're a small business partnering with a larger company, okay? Now, that's good and bad. It's good in that it's opportunity for you. It's bad if the company, because they're a large company, they can have a tendency to squash you if you don't approach them carefully. That's why when we partner like IBM and Booz Allen and all these multi-billion dollar companies, we are very careful about how we structure that deal so that we don't get squashed, right? And it's not that they're bad companies. It's just that when you're a big company, sometimes things get out of your control, and if you're not careful and you're not properly tucked into the right place in that company, you can get squashed and you can get hurt and you can go out of business. I've seen it happen, okay? So you're gonna be careful how you embrace the boulder. So we have these opportunities there, and another case study for you, a little bit of old school again. Who's this guy? Very good, you got that one correct. Rick James. And what kind of music was he known for back in the 70s? What would you call it? Beginning for F. There you go, all my funksters, right? It was called funk music. It was a transition from R&B into what we have now. It's kind of funk was kind of that transition, period. And Rick James was known for that, right? Remember the song You and I? That was a funk song, F-U-N-K, funk. So far, so good. Who were these guys? Very good. Who said Temptations? Somebody, young person got that back there. Temptations, right? Very good. What were they known for? What kind of music? Rhythm and blues, kind of love ballads, kind of that whole Motown thing, right? Remember this? You're too young, but this okay. Right? Slow, Motown, R&B kind of thing, okay? So you had Rick James, funk, Temptations, old school R&B, both working at Motown. Berry Gordy saw the future. And the future was not R&B the way that the Temptations came through. The future was funk. And then the derivatives of that. So how do you, if you're an entrepreneur, and you have these assets and resources in your company, how do you leverage both of them so you can gain new markets and new market share? What do? You partner. So what Berry Gordy did was he partnered up Rick James, young funkster, with the Temptations, old school R&B, and the test for you is, what was the product? What was the product? Joe said September, no, not September, right? You guys are too young. Or too old to remember, huh? I'm serious. She said, are you serious? I'm serious. I never thought I would ever hear the Temptations saying, I want the funk. Never in my life did I thought I ever see that. But hear Temptations saying, I want the funk, because they recognized where the future was going, and they need to partner in order to get to the future. Okay, young folks, you got that? Okay, all right. Step number 8, determining the alpha project. My friends, talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. So if you really want to engage in a partnership and alliance, you really have to make something happen, even if it is just the alpha project, which is a beginning project, which may be a small project, but to help you and your partner get more comfortable with each other, right? It's kind of like you date before you marry. It's kind of a dating thing, right? You kind of date on the alpha project, right? 2007, 2008, who thought that this man had any chance of becoming president of the United States? In 2007, 2008, you know what the Alpha Project was for President Obama? It was Iowa. It was the state of Iowa. Why? Why do you think? Because Iowa is 99.99% white. And there are many people in America who thought that the white Americans would not vote for an African American president. Well, guess what? They were wrong, because Obama won Iowa. And that was the Alpha Project, where the world said, oh my goodness, he can win. He can win. And it changed the whole dynamic of the race, okay? That was the Alpha Project in that election. Hoover Dam, you can tell I'm an engineer. Hoover Dam, one of the great engineering marvels of our time, right? Built out there near Vegas and all that. Well, Hoover Dam was almost impossible at the time, they thought, right? So what did they do? They said, well, they put an RFP out that was too big for any one company to win. So what happened was these seven companies, right, who became very, very well-known companies after the Hoover Dam, they formed a company, and it's called six companies, and their new corporate name was Six Companies Incorporated. And what they said was, we cannot build the Hoover Dam by ourselves, but together we can do it. They won the contract, and they built the Hoover Dam. Another example of the power of alliances and partnerships. Step number 9, and we're in the blue zone here still getting to the home finish here. Step 9 is maintaining independence. Maintaining independence. What I say there is, what's important there is when you go into an alliance or partnership, on the front end, one of your objectives should be that I should be, as a company or a person, I should be better off when I'm done this relationship than what I am now going into it. That's how you maintain independence. Now, I will tell you this. If you are not intentional about maintaining independence in that relationship, you will be taken advantage of. Because the other company, the other team figure, well, okay, let me just get as much as I can. within reason, okay? So you have to know what it is that you want out of the deal, right? Maintaining independence. Okay, another case study for you as we get close to the end. Who is this guy? Very good, young people. A young person got that answer right. She says, Santana. Who's this guy? Very good. What do they have in common? Santana was what? Old school, Latin, guitars, and this young fellow to the right, what's he known for, Taylor? Haiti and hip hop, Black Eyed Peas, and combine them together. What do you have? You have this fucking fight, right? Spanish Harlem, which did very, very well financially, by the way, very, very well. Okay, how do you maintain independence? Create the future, work backwards, setting proper expectations, being intentional about what you want out of the relationship. When we go into a deal in our IT company or our energy company, we are very clear, this is what we want out of the deal. And then we negotiate what that is, and we come to an agreement, okay? So we now move to step 10. Step 10, which is still in the same zone, okay? So then we went to green zone, the red zone, the blue zone. Now we're step 10, which is embrace the porcupine. Embracing the porcupine. How do you embrace a porcupine, my friends? Very carefully. Very carefully. Because people are like porcupines, right? See, business, my friends, is about people. It's about relationships. You can have all the technology, all the processes and procedures and all that kind of good stuff, but at the end of the day, business is about relationships. It's about people. So when you and I deal with people, you have to also deal with all of their issues. Can I get an amen to that? Because people have issues, don't we? We have issues. We have idiosyncrasies that we bring to the table, right? And you got to deal with it. Here's what I'll tell you to watch out for. In a relationship with a partner or company, my point is the yellow line represents the reality. You have good days and bad days in a relationship. Some days is good, some days is bad. It's like marriage, right? Anybody who's been married, I've been married almost 40 years, right? You have good days and you have bad days, right? But what's key is, what is the trend of the relationship? Is it trending upward or trending downward? That's how you know if it's time to stay or time to get out, all right? You need to monitor the trend of the relationship. So I use that to talk about that whole process. So then we have step 11, which is still in the blue zone, which is the legal aspects of partnering, right? Anyone here attorneys, any lawyers in the room? Good. Now I can talk trash, right? Lawyers have their benefit. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I got one. Lawyers have their benefit. But my point is, and the reason why we have this as step 11 in the 12-step model, is if you bring in attorneys too soon, I'm sorry, brother. If you bring attorneys in too soon into a relationship, they could kill a deal. Not intentionally, but because they're trained to minimize risk. And so they find every little thing that could go wrong, and they find a way to deal with it. And if you're not careful, the other side will say, forget this. This is too hard. I'm out of here. So there's a balance. It's a balance here. So what I talk about in the joint in the legal aspect is you can go from a loosely coupled relationship to a couple that's moderate to one that is tightly coupled, right? And depending upon which model you use, loosely coupled, moderately, or tightly coupled, your legal reality, your legal requirements are going to change. Because the more tightly you are coupled, the more legal deals issues you have to deal with, okay? Versus a loosely coupled, which is a handshake, co-marketing, whatever, but it's a loose relationship, all right? All I'm saying is you need to know what that is, where you are on the spectrum, and then base your strategy, your legal strategy, around how do you mitigate risk in the relationship, okay? And then we have the last step, which is step 12, which is transitioning. As is true with every ecosystem, every entity in the universe, and it's definitely in nature, everything has a beginning and an end. Begins, then it ends. So part of being successful with this is you got to know when you start how you're going to end. I did a case study in the book where I talked about the alliance between Toyota and General Motors, the #1 and #2 car companies in the world. They saw a need to partner because they saw things that they could not do by themselves. They needed each other. So what do? They formed this agreement. In their case, it was a 5-year agreement. They said, we're going to do this deal for 5 years. So they put a linear time on the requirement. For 5 years, at the end of 5 years, we're going to sit down, we're going to have a discussion about what we do to transition. Well, they got through 5 years. They saw, they blew away all of their objectives. It was very successful. What did they do? They started another relationship on top of that one, right? Transitioning. So the idea is, how do you transition? Well, these are options we've seen in the research, from shaking hands and going your separate ways, to we've seen companies that have merged. They started as a partnership, and it was so good, they said, let's get married. Let's make it permanent, right? And they merge, or you can continue to deal with modifications. These are all ways to transition. And so my point to you is this, as I close. You and I really need to pay attention to alliances and partnerships, because they will determine our level of success. Again, one of my heroes, Einstein, said, the world is a dangerous place, not because of those who do evil, but because of those who look on and do nothing. So there's a lot of bad things happening in the world today that we need to be very sensitive to, right? But to deal with them, it's going to require us to come together. Find ways to come together in innovative and creative ways. And then I close again with my dear friend, Mr. Einstein. He says the only source of knowledge is experience. So the experience for you, as it pertains to alliances and partnerships, is just try it. Try it out. Take my model, whatever model you want to use, and try it out. Because by experiencing it, you will gain knowledge and understanding. Okay, so good? So far, so good? So far, so good? Can I get a yes? Can I get a no? Can I get something there? Okay, I'm done. God bless y'all. Thank you very much.